And welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal, and we are on day 3 of my Slasher Fest, and we are going to talk about Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker, also known as Night Warning, which I prefer. Everybody's got their thing. I listened to the producer talk about his dissatisfaction when they changed the name to Night Warning, because they didn't do it, the distributor did. And I understand his point. It is a bland title, but this one just never made sense to me. I mean, she's not a baker. She's definitely a nightmare maker. She is a butcher. Poetry, some kind of nursery rhyme kind of thing, which I understand it. I don't know. I just prefer Night Warning. But in any event, and this release, which is Code Red, a defunct boutique who decided to, with this movie actually, who decided to stop being a let's do 3,000 print run and charge $50, and instead let's actually do what our mission statement claims, and that is that we are restoring and preserving these films for the masses. And they did try with this movie, but it was too late and they went bankrupt, which, you know, I know a couple of others I wouldn't mind that happening to. But Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker, the special effects on this are phenomenal. Susan Tyrrell and Jimmy McNichol, and the director and the special effects guy and the guy who plays the coach are all interviewed on screen. Susan Tyrrell's interview is the best. Well, not the best. They're all great. But it was so interesting because she actually sat there and watched the movie, and they interviewed her while she watched the movie, and she had never seen it. She made the movie and remembered making the movie and actually hated the experience, she said, but she had never seen the movie, so she watched the movie, and to watch her watch the movie, she played Aunt Cheryl. So, that was really cool. And this, you have to have this in your collection. And these special, those interviews are phenomenal to watch and was really cool to see. And really let you know a lot about this. So, Night Warning, or Butcher Baker, was released in 1981. And it was directed by William Asher. Do you know who William Asher is? William Asher is the guy from I Love Lucy. William Asher was married to Elizabeth Montgomery. William Asher created and made Bewitched. And he's doing a slasher. That's neat. So it was written by Steve Breimer from a screenplay. And it stars Jimmy McNichol, Susan Tyrrell, and Bo Svenson, and who else? Julia Duffy. The guy that played the coach was Steve Eastin. So, yeah. And let's get down to the business. Okay, so the movie opens with us seeing Aunt Cheryl and little 3-year-old Billy. And they're saying goodbye to his parents who are leaving and going on a trip. On the way, there's no breaks. We have this absolutely phenomenal decapitation scene where they run into the back of a log truck, and the log comes through the window, takes his head off. She ends up going off the cliff. It was horrible, a very anxiety-producing scene, especially if you've ever been in a car wreck, which I have. So, she goes over a cliff, car blows up, they're gone. It flashes to 14 years later, where we see Aunt Cheryl waking Jimmy up for school. Jimmy McNichol, yes, but Billy. We see her waking him up from school, and it's like you can tell. Now, I am a very affectionate parent, and I've seen a lot of extremely affectionate parents. Believe it or not, I've seen dads and moms sitting on a couch with their 27-year-old son or daughter laying on the couch with them with their feet in their lap while they massage their feet. I don't have any problem with very affectionate families. But Aunt Cheryl is very creepy. And the way she is waking him up is very, very light. Right from the beginning, you see, oh, that's not affectionate. That's erotic. And there is a big difference. And so she wakes him up, and he goes to school, basketball practice. We're introduced to Bill Paxton, little baby Bill Paxton. He is on the basketball team. This is one of the first roles that he ever did. And he is just Bill Paxton. You could just tell, So the coach calls in Billy and talks with him a while. It turns out that he thinks he's so good at basketball that he can get a scholarship, and he's got a scout coming to see him and do that. Now, when he goes home and tells Auntie Cheryl about it, she is not happy. You're not going to leave me. You're not going to do that. They have a fight. They make up the next day, and she's like, I'm behind you all the way. Go for it. I'm sorry. And then that day, she had asked him to call the TV repair guy. This was after he had told her about the scholarship and the fight. So this TV guy, the TV repairman comes over. Now, Billy's at school. And Cheryl sexually assaults him. Yes, she sexually assaults Phil, the TV repairman. And when he rejects her, and she's timed it perfectly because Billy is coming home, and he sees through the window as she stabs Phil to death. And Phil walks in, runs in, tries to help her, and she claims that he tried to rape her, which of course we saw the real thing. It was the other way around. So we're introduced to Joe Carlson, Detective Joe Carlson. That's Bo Svenson. That's Walking Tall. And he is every bit the asshole. I mean, the first words out of his mouth, you're like, I hate this guy. I really hate this guy. And he does everything in his power to make sure you hate this character. I don't think there is a man or woman, straight or gay, that does not hate Bo Svenson's character in this movie. So, he of course does not believe, which that's the only thing in this whole movie that he was right about, and that is he knew that something was up, which there was, just not what he thought. And he doesn't believe for a second that Aunt Cheryl was that guy attempted to do anything to her. So this leaves him, of course, wondering why, but since he's not a rational person, he comes up with a completely wrong theory. When if he had any sense, like his sergeant, who does come up with the right theory after the, in the movie, he would have been able to come up with logically what was going on. But so he doesn't believe her story. And she brings a bunch of stuff down from the attic. Billy gets curious. He goes up there and falls down the stairs. He sees a picture. And he asked her who it was. And she said it was a guy named Chuck. This an asshole boyfriend of his mother's, her sister, his mother. So we see Joe trying to investigate all of this. He visits Coach at school and tells him about Billy and Phil, and then lets him know that he knows everything. And that is that the coach, Tom, is gay, and that Phil was his boyfriend, and that they even had matching wedding rings with each other's names on it. And he tells them the usual homophobic stuff, I suggest you get out of town, you resign, or there's going to be a lynching or something like that. So he also lets Tom, know his theory. And that was that Billy's gay, and they were in a love triangle, and that Billy killed Phil because of this love triangle, and that Cheryl was covering up for Bill. Totally ridiculous, and and it's obvious why he would come up with that, because he is a complete hate monger in this movie. Now, once he tells him that he knows they were a couple and suggests Billy was in a triangle, we see Auntie Cheryl opening up this boarded up hidden room down in the basement. And she goes in there, and there's a shrine to the picture that you saw of her sister's boyfriend, Chuck. There is a shrine of that picture, and she's talking to it about how she didn't mean to kill Phil. She only wanted to scare Billy into staying with her, and now people were trying to take him away and stuff like that. So she tells him about, the plan that she had. Now, back at school, we get to see Bill Paxton again. His name is Eddie in this movie. And he also, the rumors, right? He also accuses Billy of being with the coach and Phil, and they end up in a cool fight on the thing, on the yard, the playground. So Joe comes to talk to Billy again outside the house, where he once again says a bunch of homophobic jokes and snarled remarks at Billy, and accuses him again of being in some kind of triangle with Phil and the coach. So he also informs him, which he did not know. He informs him of his theory and tells him, I know that this is bullshit. And you know how I know that? Because Phil was gay, and he was with Coach Tom. And there is no way that big, brawny gay guy tried to rape your Aunt Cheryl. So something's up, because he was gay. There's no way he did that. So Billy didn't know that. So now Billy had new information, but it didn't bother him at all, aside from being accused of being in a triangle. So Billy and Aunt Cheryl have a fight, because Aunt Cheryl witnessed this, and now she knows. And she knows how she fucked up too, right? Because when she was standing out on the porch and listening to the detective give Billy this new information, it probably rang in her head like, oh man, I most certainly picked the wrong guy to try to assault and bring into this little plot, because I had no idea that I tried to rape a gay guy. Right? So, oops, was definitely on her mind. So Billy starts to kind of suspect Cheryl as well, And the coach even tries to go back to the cop and take up for him, trying to protect Billy. And Detective Joe goes and questions Julie. That's Julia Duffy's character. That's Billy's girlfriend. And, about the strange relationship between him and his aunt, asking her personal questions, which that's when she realizes that he's accusing Billy of being in a love triangle, and she's like, you're crazy. So that night, Auntie Cheryl, catches Bill and Julia together in his bedroom and absolutely freaks the fuck out, and chases her out of the house, where that Sergeant Cook, the really sane, the only sane cop, he actually had been peeking around too. Because although Joe doesn't want to believe any of it, he's been trying to tell Joe that something's funny going on here and it's not what he thinks. Well, he questions Julie when she comes out and is like, did your aunt catch y'all? I mean, did Billy's aunt catch y'all? And she's like, yeah, you could say that. So he's like, well, actually, that's good, because my theory is, I think, a little bit more appropriate, and I don't believe this stuff about the coach and Phil and Billy. So he's kind of on the good side. And that's when we have Billy gets mad, and he goes and has the infamous shower scene. Well, infamous to those of us who care. Because see, there's this top list that I want to do. I've seen some channels do top lists about the more racy side of things. And, the 10 best boob shots in horror and stuff like that. Well, what about the butts, man? Okay? So I'd like to do a top 10 of the hottest, best butt shots in horror. And this movie is number one, because we have Jimmy McNichol's shower scene, which is also very uncomfortable, because Aunt Cheryl just walks in there on him, and he's like, he's used to it. I love the way he acted like he was not shocked at all. I mean, he is buck-ass naked, and Aunt Cheryl is just walking in there going, you gotta promise me you'll never bring no sluts in this house again. And I'm like, he's talking to her like, it is my, would you stop it? I mean, I'm tired of your bullshit. I'm like, he doesn't. And he's like, hand me a towel. And he hands her, she hands him a towel, and he puts it on for a second to talk to her, and then takes it right back off in front of her and gets in the shower. I'm like, y'all been together way too long. I can't remember. I don't remember. I never had any of my aunts see me naked. My uncles, yeah, but that's guys. I've never seen aunts do that. But anyway, so that was like really cool. And that would be my number one butt shot in horror, is Jimmy McNichol in this movie. Just letting you know. So, oh, okay. So, I got lost. Shower scene. So Aunt talks to the shrine again. We see Aunt Cheryl talking to the shrine again. And Sergeant Cook talks once again to Joe, Detective Joe, trying to convince him, that he's on the wrong track. He tells him about Billy's parents. He tells him about the police reports from that incident 14 years ago, that there was suspected brake tampering on the car, and Joe is totally uninterested. He's just like, I don't give a fuck. Do that on your own time. I've got, these gay guys. That's what I'm after, and that's what this is going to be, regardless of whether it's the truth or not. It's a big, giant gay conspiracy, because that's how hot he was for it to be that. So, and Cook is about fed up with it. Sergeant Cook is just like, fucking asshole, man. Doesn't want to get to the truth here, you know what I mean? So, that's the night. The night has come now for the basketball game, in which the scout has came from the college, and the aunt's acting all, it's okay, I hope you do good and stuff like that. Nuh-uh. bitch drugs him. I mean, she like fills the milk up with drugs and gets him to stop and drink the milk before he leaves, you know. Oh, it's going to be great. I hope you do well. Here, drink some milk. I'm so sorry about everything. So he drinks the milk. He goes to the basketball game. She's there. Julia's there. Everybody's there. And about halfway through the match, that shit starts hitting him. He's falling all over the place. He runs into the wall. He ends up passing out. So there goes his scholarship. And, you know, Cheryl got her way. Because he ain't going nowhere now. So he wakes up. And earlier in the movie, she had told him that she was fixing up the attic into a new attic room for him. And when he wakes up, it was like a room for a 10-year-old or 9-year-old. You know, 9-year-old toys and stuff like that. So he wakes up in that, and she won't let him go to school, and she continues to sneak drugs and stuff. Now, he ends up sneaking into her room and looking around in her drawers, and, you know, for this jewelry box that she had showed him. And he wanted to see the stuff, because he had offered him her mother's bracelet, and he had refused it. And so he wanted to see what else was in that box. And she called him, and shit storm occurred there too. Now, so she catches him, and during that fight, he confronts her about her old boyfriend. Because it turns out that picture of Chuck was not his mother's boyfriend. It was her boyfriend. And he wants to know, what the fuck is she been lying about? And what else has she been lying about? And he even brings up, you know, Phil. He's like, you know, I don't believe that he tried to do that to you. So what the hell is going on? Now, Cook has done more investigating, and he tries to tell Detective Joe, look, I found out even more. There was this guy in high school named Chuck who fucking vanished. And he was dating this Cheryl girl. And to our knowledge, she's never been with anybody since. And he vanished, you know. And of course, Joe, again, doesn't have any interest in anything. So we see her at the shrine again, talking. And now she turns around, and we see Chuck's skeletonized body. So this shrine and that boy has been in there since she was in fucking high school. You know, 17 years ago. So she's had him in there for 17 years. And we see Chuck's body. Billy gets Julie to distract his aunt so that he can go search through her stuff again. And she does, where during that little session, Aunt Cheryl ends up knocking her out cold with a fucking meat tenderizer. So, you know, while they were arguing. Now, after she knocks her out, she sort of disappears. You don't know what happened to her. And Maggie, the neighbor, she comes in and goes upstairs and finds Cheryl doing weird shit with Billy, because she keeps trying to force that milk down him. And Maggie starts getting very, you know, because you've seen this neighbor through the movie too. So Maggie starts getting very like, what the fuck is going on around here? Okay. So Bill when Billy comes to a little bit, he confronts his aunt about the rest of the stuff that he found in that box, and that's including his birth certificate. Aunt Cheryl is his real mother, and Chuck was his father. And her sister and her husband adopted Billy because Chuck had run off and abandoned them, which we now know was not true. So she's his real mom, Chuck was his father, and that she killed him for trying to leave her. And that, her sister and her sister's husband adopted him. So Julie's mom called and asking for Julie. No, she's not here. I haven't seen her. Well, she was coming over there, yeah, but I don't know. Fuck you and her is kind of what Cheryl was telling her. Now, Cheryl's went completely nuts now. Okay, Cheryl has gotten progressively more insane through this whole movie. So, Maggie, the neighbor, she is also, still hanging around, and she starts, confronting Cheryl, too, about she heard part of the conversation with Jimmy. She heard her on the phone with Julie's mom, and she's like, I thought you said Julie was here for a bit, but then she left. You told her mother she was never here. So she's definitely made herself a threat to Cheryl. So she ends up trying to drug Billy to death, and Margie does manage to get out of the house away from Cheryl, but no, Cheryl's outside and does this weird cat sound in the woods that makes her stop and look around. It was very creepy. And then she cut her whole guts open with the machete. So Julie now wakes up in the shrine and sees Chuck's body and also his pickled head. Because Aunt Cheryl's thing through this whole movie was pickling everything. Eggs and cucumbers and just anything that can be pickled, she pickled it. So that was a shock. So his skeleton was laying there, but his head was pickled. So Margie's been killed now, and Julie breaks out of the shrine, which Cheryl hears, and you have the big chase scene through the woods, and then they make it back down to the outhouse or the storage room, and that's when Sergeant Cook, he has shown up, and he's runs in there and hears Julie screaming. And he opens the door and runs in there and turns on the light. And when he does, Cheryl cuts his hand off and then cuts his throat and kills him right in front of Julie. And she goes after Julie again, and we have the giant, I call it the mud hole fight, where they try to kill each other in the mud. Now, Billy wakes up during this time. He manages to stagger downstairs, and he tries to call 911. But that's when Cheryl comes out, and she starts strangling him with the phone. It's a very intense. Cheryl's this little woman, right? And yet she was kicking ass. But then crazy people have crazy strength, But the fight scene between her and Jimmy, where she's fighting him, that looked so real. Both of them really looked like they were intensely involved in that scene, So he ends up getting hold of a letter opener, which he stabs her about right here through the chest, and it looks like she's dead. And he tries to go over there and call again, but he calls the coach, right? And so the coach says, he tells him, he's crying. He's like, I killed my mom. And he's like, your mom? And he's like, yeah, I've killed my mom. She's dead right here. And so he's coming to help. So he gets there, and right before he gets there, Cheryl comes back. So bitch is like, I'm not through yet. So she starts trying to kill him again, and she begins to like slash him. Like he's trying to get away from her, and she's like slashing him across his back, across his neck, and all of that. And I tell you what, if he hadn't, you don't know which one of them would have won in the end had not some kind of intervention took place. The intervention in this case happened to be that Billy fell on the fireplace poker, and which allowed him to like, oh, a fireplace poker. And he managed to grab it, and he impaled his Aunt Cheryl through her body. So Detective Joe has finally showed up, and he has found Maggie's body, and Sergeant Cook and all of that. And he walks into the living room where Cheryl's dead over there, finally. And Joe is taking care of Billy, trying to fix his wounds and stuff like that. Now, Julie had tried to tell Joe outside that Cheryl was the one who did all of this stuff. But he, of course, chooses to blame Billy, and refuses to believe Julie. So he's actually pulls out his gun and he's going to kill Billy. And the coach ends up like jumping up and hitting Detective Joe's arm, which makes him misfire. And that's when Billy pulls the gun and ends up like shooting the detective 2 or 3 times, but he killed him dead. And I put most satisfying kill in horror. Yeah. There was, if there is a better kill in horror as far as the person who was killed, that was extremely satisfying. So then we see a scroll before the credits that says that Billy went on trial for shooting the detective, and it only lasted 4 days, and he was acquitted, and he was easily acquitted. Good, because that guy was a total asshole. And that was Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker. Now, like I said, Susan Tyrrell is just absolutely flawless in this movie as Aunt Cheryl. Jimmy was just, well, he was what he was at the time. I mean, he was a super teen heartthrob. And he's a great actor, too. He was perfect for Billy. She was perfect for Aunt Cheryl. And everybody in the cast. I mean, Bo Svenson, what can you say? He's perfect. If he wants to be a good guy, he can make you love him. If he wants you to be a bad guy, if he wants to be a bad guy, he can make you hate his guts. And I don't know of anybody who could watch this movie and not be extremely thrilled that his ass was killed in the end. That was one kill that was deserved. It was the only one in the whole movie that was deserved. Well, except for Cheryl herself, because it was time for that bitch to go too. So, yeah, it was an absolutely phenomenal movie. 1981's Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, a.k.a. A Night Warning. This release does have the dual cover with the original Night Warning cover, if you choose that. And it has the Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker cover, so you can pick however you wish to display it in your collection. And I don't know. I like this picture, but that name. So, I don't know. Like I said, this is a Code Red release. They no longer exist. However, you can still find this. You can still find this for a reasonable price. Go look at eBay. Brand new in the wrapper for a reasonable price. I think it's probably like 16, 17 bucks. But yeah. Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker 1981, day 3 of Slasher Fest. This is a 10 out of 10. And for a multitude of reasons. I love the story. I love the cast. I love that shower scene. I love everything about this movie. It was just perfect. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye. Always remember, never forget. You are a very, very special person. Even if you're not a psycho with your ex-boyfriend skeleton in the basement. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for stopping by. Let me know what you think of this movie, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ta.